going on, guys? So this is take 2 of this video, and in fact I have to redo 3 videos that I made today. So the first video that I made this morning, I was just addressing what happened at the Capitol yesterday, and I'm going to speak to it for just a moment, because I know that this can be a rough day. I know it's a rough day for me, and if we were having class today, we'd be talking about it. What happened yesterday is not right in any capacity. And if you or anyone you cared about or your family members engaged in any type of protesting this summer over racial injustices and police brutality or whatever cause that you were out there fighting for, and you saw the force that people were met with, I know several people that were met with force, and to see these people that were attacking our federal buildings generally not be was hard to see, hard to stomach. It's been a rough year. We've been in a pandemic for it's going on a year now. And luckily I'm at home. I've had some time to focus on myself and focus on my baby and my kids and all that. But man, I just keep running into rough patches. So with that being said, I hope that you feel that you can talk to me if you need to, or you have people in your life you can talk to. And hopefully things start uptrending soon. So anyways, today is a geometry video. We're going to talk about 5.1, exploring what makes triangles congruent. And to be honest, I'm going to try and go kind of quick because I got to get this video done so y'all can see it soon, since my last videos got all jacked up from my mic not working properly. So here we go. What makes triangles congruent? Essential question is, how can you show that triangles are congruent? Two triangles. Well, show that their corresponding sides and their corresponding angles are congruent. So this angle and that angle are the same, these sides and this side are the same, but they got to be corresponding. Definition: if two triangles are congruent, then the corresponding parts are congruent. This is known as Cpctc. It's a mouthful. This is a very good unit to take really good notes. If all corresponding parts of two triangles are congruent, then the triangles are congruent. So if all the parts are congruent, the triangles are congruent, and vice versa. It goes both ways. What must you do to show that triangles are congruent? You got to find a sequence of rigid motions that maps one triangle to the other. So if you can translate, reflect, or rotate, or some combination of those, you hold with rigid motion is congruent. We know that, right? You should know that. For this letter D, it'd be a counterclockwise rotation about point D by angle M by the measure of angle BDE. So BDE. So the image of point B must be point E. B must be E. This is clearly a reflection across the line segment DE. This is kind of common sense sometimes, but you just got to be careful. Is the converse? So remember what converse means. Is the converse of CPC? Oh, my cord's in my way. Hang on. Is the converse of Cpctc always true when you apply it to triangles? Yeah, if you draw the two triangles and they have congruent corresponding parts, you'll always be able to find a series of rigid motions that maps one to the other, so they're always going to be congruent. Just remember what rigid motion means. So explain one. A biconditional is a statement that can be written in the form P if and only if Q. So a lot of this is like logic proof verbiage, so definitely write this down. And we can, two triangles are congruent if and only if corresponding pairs of sides and corresponding pairs of angles are congruent. So it's got to be the sides and it's got to be the angles, and they got to match up. So we compare the parts. If they're congruent, triangles are congruent. If the parts are not congruent, triangles are not congruent. So let's take a look. Example A, we have side length, line segment JH, line segment LM. Those look good to me, both 1 meter. The hypotenuse, line segment JG and KM, both 2 meters, looks good to me. Last line segment, 1.7, looks good to me. Angle measures, we have a 60-degree angle and a 60-degree angle that correspond. We have a 30-degree angle and a 30-degree angle that correspond, and we have a 90-degree angle and a 90-degree. Hi, KK. Go put that back. KK can go up and downstairs now, so she's been coming down here. All right, so if you compare the sides, you compare the angles, you determine that because all the pairs of the corresponding parts are congruent, the triangles therefore are congruent. Looking at this one, you take a look at the side lengths, take a look. Oh, what do you see here? An 8.45 and an 8.5 centimeters. Clearly, those sides aren't going to be congruent. Those corresponding sides, therefore, the triangles are not congruent. The contrapositive, another proof logic statement. If you're getting into computer programming, engineering, anything like that, this is just good stuff to know. So if P then Q, you have the contrapositive is if not Q, then not P. So you can prove things by proving that something's not what it is. The contrapositive, the true statement is always true. So you can justify part B using the contrapositive. So if the contrapositive is true, then the contrapositive of Cpctc is true. Therefore, if the corresponding parts of two figures are not congruent, then the figures are not congruent, right? That makes sense to me. All right, you might want to pause this and do these real quick. I will just drop some knowledge. This one is congruent. If you look at all the side lengths, all the angle measures are the same. They're congruent. This one's not. Clearly, you have angle measures that are not congruent. Applying the properties. So, remember guys, geometry and algebra, you use algebra to help with geometry. Okay, shh, Dad's making a video. Yeah, don't eat that. Alright, so we have the Triangle Sum Theorem, which is it states that the three angle measures of a triangle must add up to 180 degrees. That's a fact. You can write that down if you don't already know that. So you can take a triangle that has two angle measures and clearly find the third, and that's what they did here, and they found that angle measure L is 80 degrees. 80 degrees. Set corresponding measures equal. So if you look at P and L, so angle measure P, angle measure L, you set them equal. You clearly see that P is written in terms of an algebraic expression, 5x plus 30, so you set them equal and you solve, and that's where the algebra comes in. You can plug that in to find out that angle P is also 80 degrees. So B, do the same thing, right? So you have angle measure A, angle measure D, congruent. Angle measure B, angle measure E, congruent. Angle measure C, angle measure F, congruent. So DE, that's not DE. So DE corresponds to AB, line segment AB. Now set the things that are corresponding equal to each other. So DE equals 2y. Wait, what? Sorry, my brain just tripping. So AB is 36 millimeters. So therefore, you plug that in because that's corresponding to DE. And now we know DE is actually 2y plus 20. So you solve and you get y equals 8. Solving equations, right? What else we got here? So for this one, if you take a look, you'll realize that because the angle measures are different, you cannot get to 180 degrees. The pairs aren't going to be congruent, or they're not going to add up to 180 degrees, or the angles won't be the same. All the angles won't be the same. They're not going to be congruent. The triangles cannot be congruent. So you might want to pause and do these first, but I'll give you the answers. So x equals 26 and y equals 5. Hopefully you've been hitting that pause button. Real quick, looking at 10. So if you use rigid motion, so for figures to be congruent, you have to be able to map them to another one using a sequence of rigid motion. So you have your rotations, your translations, your reflections. If a pair of corresponding parts is not congruent, no rigid motion maps one to the other because distance or angle measure will not be preserved. If you don't have rigid motion, you don't have congruency. Period. Homework, I would do what you need. A couple of each one. Definitely work on setting up and solving. Definitely make sure you're identifying congruent, corresponding sides, corresponding angles, and figuring out if they're congruent or not. That is really the gist of this lesson. I know that with the work you guys did before break, this shouldn't be too bad. So video production is not going to be great on these because I got to get them loaded fast because again I lost my data. But thanks for watching. Hit that like button. I'll see you guys soon.